I am so excited. This is such an amazing experience for me, and I hope it will be for you as well. My name is Terry, and I look the way I do, and I feel the way I do, and a lot of times I think the way I do for one reason and one reason only. And that's because I eat 3 weighed and measured meals a day. I write them down, I call them to my sponsor, I follow my food plan no matter what, because then what? Oh, this is huge for me. I want to share a picture of because you don't know me, and I'm going to share two. All right, I'll share this one, and you can see that. Good, good. It's I don't know if I can make it bigger. I think it's okay. Deleted the other picture by mistake, but my story quickly. My story. I'll spend just a little few minutes on it. Is that I was always obese. I was obese in kindergarten. I was the fattest, tallest girl in the class. I had to sit in the back of the class. I did this little snapshot of through the decades, and here I was 10 years old, and you could see how chubby I am. My mother made all my clothes. That was kind of a very traumatic experience because my mother was so angry at me, with me, because of my obesity. And at a very young age, I was probably less than 10. She was just desperate. She took me for injections so that she heard that, if you lose water weight, you lose weight. And then when I was 20, I was, over 200 pounds. By the time I was 20, I was already on diet pills. I was already on Weight Watchers. I was already on all kinds of diets. And I had a great decade in my 20s. When I was probably about 21, I weighed 287 pounds. And I went to Weight Watchers and I lost 120 pounds. And I kept that off for about 7 years. But as you could see, when I was in my 30s, how obese I had become. And my hand is holding up a little baby. By the time I had that baby, I was over 250 pounds. And what happened there was that in that decade, it was a huge decade in my life. I graduated to my profession. I got married. I got a house. I got children. And I lost my abstinence. And at that point in my life, I had the illusion that I would never, ever get that fat again. Never, ever, ever get that fat again. And now I know today that if I think that way, it's a delusion because I can get that fat again in a heartbeat. So what happened with me there was that I followed my food plan at Weight Watchers, just like I followed GreySheet without exception. And I became pregnant when I was 26, 26. And the doctor told me that I just needed to add, another dairy and a carbohydrate. I bought the Weight Watcher food plan there, and I went off and got a soft serve cold dessert, and then that was that. And then I went on to by the time I delivered that baby, I had put on over 50 pounds, and the baby was 6 pounds. I had another baby shortly after. 14 months later, gave birth to my second daughter. And by then I was well over 300 pounds. And you could see in my 40s how obese I was. In my 50s, how obese I was. And then in 55, when I was 55, GreySheet found me. And here I am today. I lost 180 pounds. My first abstinent date is March 27, 2005. I lost 180 pounds in just a very short period of time. I would be in the shower and I just felt the fat fall off of me. At that point, when GreySheet found me, I was disabled. I was having difficulty doing my job. I had to use a motorized scooter. I wanted to live in a nursing home. I don't know if that's the name that you use in your countries, but I wanted to live in a facility where it would be easier for me, where they had wheelchairs, they had electric beds to raise my head, they had devices to help me walk. To me, it seemed like an option. The other option that seemed so inviting was to be dead. Now, I have to say that eating compulsively like that, being close to 350 pounds is suicidal. But I never had suicidal thoughts that I was going to, suddenly take my life. But I was taking my life over those decades, little by little, pound by pound. I was removing opportunities of living from myself. I thought that death would be a welcome relief from being obese. I felt like I was walking around in a casket with the arms and legs sticking out. GreySheet found me in such a special way that I couldn't defy God's intervention, and I can be very self-righteous. And at that point, I said, Terry, even you can't deny this intervention. And I went to a GreySheet meeting, and here I am today, 18 years later. Interesting is that I am back to the weight that I was when I lost weight in Weight Watchers. And I'm just going to get rid of this picture. And I just want to show you this picture. And over here, you could see my size. I was just, I can't even describe it. And here I am today. This is where I was right here. That's exactly where I was when I followed Weight Watchers without exception. So I had a 28-year relapse. And in that relapse, I did many, many things like most of us, outpatient eating disorder programs, therapists, programs, diets, this, that, the other thing. But I was never able to sustain my weight, any kind of abstinence more than a day. And it wasn't that, they say the key is willingness. But willingness is not enough, was not enough for me, because I was willing to follow these food plans. I wanted to lose weight. I just was on the wrong food plans that prohibited me from losing weight. So I have forgiven myself for all those decades of obesity. It wasn't that I wasn't trying. I was trying. I just wasn't able to follow the food plans because they had food we were allergic to. So just that's a little backdrop of history of me. And the other is that, when I started GreySheet, I want to talk about the beginning, and I really want to, lately, every time I speak, I talk specifically to people that are counting days. In GreySheet, counting days is really important so that you can see that you can sustain an abstinence to give you the results that you want. It's important to get to 90 days of abstinence so that you can do services that you can't do without the 90 days, like sponsoring, like hosting a meeting. Those are so critical to maintain your abstinence and to do step 12 to carry the message to other sufferers. So that's critically important to get to 90 days. The most important thing is day 1, because without day 1, you can't have day 2. And you never know which day of abstinence is going to get you to continue. So never, I just like when I hear people, I'm day 1 again, I'm day 1 again. Day 1 is the best, could be the best day of your life. It could be the absolute best day. So day 1s are just critical. So I did want to say that. And I also wanted to say what I was like before, what I am like now. And I had spoke about this once before, and I want to remind myself of it now. I have a full life now. I can walk, I can breathe. And people say that GreySheet got my life back. And I cannot say that because I didn't have a life. My life was a battle. So GreySheet gave me a life. So I consider myself 18 years old because, and throughout the process. So I can't find my little note and I don't want to distract myself. But before GreySheet, I felt hopeless, totally hopeless. I just thought I'm going to die. Even when I first started GreySheet, I have to say that 3 weeks into GreySheet, I said, you know what, Terry, if you can do GreySheet, you can do any food plan. You don't need to do GreySheet. And then step 2 came to my mind because I had 18 years in OA, gaining and losing the same 30, 40 pounds. And I just said to myself, I just went right back to step 2. Oh God, restore me to sanity. I already have documented evidence that I can't do anything else. So that was like just so great. So, I just, my will run riot. I was useless. I felt like I was useless. I was so hard. Everything was so hard for me physically. I used to go, I have to speak at meetings and I would go early so that the sweat would be wiped off my face, that my breathing had slowed down. I had to give myself extra time to move this big body around. And now I'm so useful because I could show up in a minute and I'm there, I'm right on it. I don't have to wipe my face. I don't have to be embarrassed. You know, I also felt helpless. I couldn't get up. I was in a wheelchair, in a giant wheelchair. It was hard to clean. It was hard to live. And now I'm so helpful. I'm a serial helper. I'm a serial helper. And I had a funny story about Manhattan, which if I have time, I'm going to tell you the funny story. It's funny and it's sad, you know, but it's funny and it's sad. But it was because of GreySheet that I was able to do what I did. And the other thing is to reckless. I mean, we have to be honest. I have to be honest. Eating the way I ate, living the way I living was reckless. That was no different than driving drunk, driving on drugs, driving, you know, I was reckless and now I'm responsible. And somebody always says, but today I take responsibility for my actions. And that is so true. And I have actions that are not very becoming and that I wish that I didn't react that way, but I am responsible for them. Nobody else is. Meaningless. I felt like if I won a lottery, that they should just give the money to somebody else. Why would they give me money? What would I do with it? I couldn't go anywhere, couldn't do anything. And I used to think that, like, what a waste to give Terry $10,000. What was she going to do with it? Go buy food? But now I feel like I'm so meaningful, and I know I'm meaningful to other people. I'm meaningful to myself. I matter. The other is defenseless. You know, I had no defense over that food. I didn't. It was all those diets. They were just, I was just in the wrong classroom. It was like me wanting to learn Spanish, and I'm in a classroom that teaches French. It wasn't that I didn't want to learn Spanish. I just went to the wrong class. And I've learned that. So actually what I'm hearing myself say here is so much forgiveness of myself and my past. And I never really felt that. And breathless. I told you I couldn't breathe. I sounded like a vacuum cleaner. And now I could breathe easily. And I felt worthless. And now I know how worthy I am. And I'm going to tell you now my little story about Manhattan, which I'm sure you've heard about Manhattan. And it could be, you know, challenging being in Manhattan. And I'm walking along and I'm taking my daughters who are 27 years younger than me, and they're hobbling along and I'm racing through the city and they're overweight. And there's this man in a wheelchair and he's trying to cross the curb to the next curb. And I said, oh, let me help you. Where are you going? And he says, oh, I'm going that way. I said, oh, well, so am I. And I'm happily walking, pushing this man in a wheelchair. Now, my years of obesity have damaged my body. I have a bad ankle. I have a bad back. I have bad knees. But there I am, the serial helper. I'm going to push this man in the wheelchair. My daughters are like saying to me, he's homeless. He's homeless. And I didn't even catch on that this man had on these, he just needed help. So I reached my hand out, just like GreySheeters. You know, we see people that need help, reach out a hand, you know, in any of the programs. So I'm walking along with this man and I say to him, well, where are you going? And he said to me, I'm going wherever you're going. I'm staying with you. And I said, holy smokes, Terry. He's not staying with me because I'm going to a Broadway show and I don't have a ticket for this man. So I wound up leaving him on the street in the car. I didn't leave him in the street. I left him on the sidewalk. And I thought that I couldn't take him with me. I can't be pushing somebody how many blocks through Manhattan. And I left him there. And you know what? I have opened the doors to GreySheet for so many people and offered them a hand. I gave them all the information. I hooked them up with sponsors. I opened the gates for them. They didn't want to walk through. So I left them there. And with that man, I left him there. He may have had opportunities to live a different way. I don't know the man. But I had to think of myself. I had to think of my health and my purpose. My primary purpose going to Manhattan was to have a wonderful day with my daughters. And I helped somebody to the best of my ability. And I don't know what happened to that man. Just like I don't know what happened to those other people in GreySheet over the 18 years. My current abstinent date is November 27th, 2005. I had a break in my abstinence. I was seriously ill. I was unwilling or unable to follow. How that happened? I want to tell you how that happened because that's important as well. I was in the hospital in and out for a month. I had cosmetic surgery to remove my belly apron, and everything went wrong. I got very ill. I was in and out of the hospital for a month. I had to have a second surgery about a month after the first that cleared up the infection. And during that time, I weighed and measured, I weighed and measured, I weighed and measured, I weighed and measured. My doctor thought I had an iPad. He had no idea I was using a scale because it was on my table. And I was in a hospital. So, the food is always the same amount. It's all measured. When they make a bowl of greens, they use a scooper and it's always the same 2.5 ounces. So the one day I said to myself, you already know it's 2.5 ounces. Why measure it? And I didn't measure that little bowl of greens that was this big. I didn't measure it. And then that triggered me. It triggered me. I went home a few days later and I was binging on protein supplements, which I was directed to eat medically. And I was crazed. I wanted everybody to disappear so that I could eat these disgusting tasting, horrible protein bars that nobody other than a compulsive overeater addict would eat them. And I called my GreySheet angel that found me in 2005. And I said to her, I need help. My sponsor that I had at the time did not have long experience. She did. And I called her and she said, well, what do you want, Terry? And I said, I don't want to be eating like this. I don't want those thoughts. I did not say I don't want to be fat again because the thoughts were worse than the obesity. And she helped me get abstinent within the confines of the definition of GreySheet with the food on the food plan. Now, I was so sick. I would put my head, weigh and measure my food, put my head on the table and sit there and watch it. But she helped me make different foods. She helped me figure it out. And now I have become that GreySheet angel, an angel for her. And to me, I love my little bag of coins. I love them. What I love the most is to be somebody's GreySheet angel. And that is wonderful. And I stay in the herd. I do service beyond the meeting level. And what that does for me is it makes my commitment more internal. It's more than just a physical act of weighing and measuring. It makes it part of my internal self. That's what service does for me. In OA, I heard that service was slimming. That was not my story because I did service. I made the coffee, whatever I did. Didn't slim me at all. What slims me and keeps me slim is I eat 3 weighted measured meals a day. I write them down. I call them into my sponsor. I follow my food plan. And I had a conflict today. And I wanted to go to Brenda's 10-year celebration, which is about an hour from my house. But I had committed to this. And I did try to find somebody to replace me. And then I thought to myself, your commitment to speak at this meeting that is just an absolute thrill for me is the same way I commit my food. I said I was going to eat this, and now I should eat it. That I shouldn't just change it because a better thing came along. Not that Brenda's meeting would be better, but I know Brenda, it's face to face. She's been there for me. I know her 18 years. And I stuck with my commitment, which was the right thing for me to do. And there you go. From recklessness to being responsible. I had a responsibility to this meeting and I was so excited. I love the whole concept of this meeting. And I listened to Marcella's, and I recommend everybody that I talk to listen to it. And it's a Bill W. story. It's a story about the fire ants. you know, in whatever step that is in the book, you know, and I talk about ants in a garden. You know, you'll see a pile of ants together. You can't kill those ants. You could put acid down there and they still come back. You know, because they're so together, they created a mountain, they created a mesh. But there could be an ant. Where am I? This is the mesh, right? And there could be one ant off at the side. That one you could just step on. You know, you just step on it, the ant's gone, it's dead, never to come back. But try and kill a batch of ants. You can't. You can't kill them. And you can use chemicals that will kill you before it kills them. So, you know, the fire ants is such a great story, and staying in the herd is a great story. And I'm so happy to be part of the Spanish speaking community. You know, it's just the power of the program. You know, I just texted somebody the other day that this disease is so powerful. It is so powerful. And you know what? So is GreySheet. So is GreySheet. So you know what? The disease is not that powerful because GreySheet has a stronger power. It's a higher power than the disease. And just keep doing it till you want to do it. I heard that in GreySheet early on. I was like amazed, like people would do, I call my daughters, they're doing this for 3 weeks. The guy did it for 6 months. This person did it for a year. And somebody said to me, just do it as long as you want to, until you want to, until you want to. He said, it took me 6 months. And you know what? The guy was right. 6 months later, I wanted to do it. I wanted to do it. You know, I wanted to do it. And it saddens me when I think that those foods that got me so obese and took my life away, I still would want to have them. I do. I do. I wish I could, but I can't. It's just like me wishing I was Asian. I'm never going to be anything other than American. I'm never going to be an Asian. You know, it's never going to change. I'm always going to be a compulsive overeater. I just don't eat those foods. And you know, I for only about 3 years ago, I'm 72. I always blamed my mother for ruining my life. And there were things in my life that my mother was certainly responsible for. Then I had to, one day, I don't know, I was reading something in books, and I said, my mother did not rob my childhood. She didn't rob my childhood. Obesity robbed my childhood. In my adult years, from when I went off that first great abstinence that I had when I weighed 160 pounds, nobody robbed my life. Obesity did. So when I was 25, I weighed 160 pounds because I lost 127. And then GreySheet, I come back to I weigh 160 pounds. So 28-year relapse. You never know what that first bite's going to do. And I have enough wreckage of the past, and I have a lot of tools, you know, just a quick on the tools. Of course, I have a scale, I have measuring cups, I have backup bags, I have wheat germ, I have soy nuts, I have all of those things. But what I have that's not in a bag is the memory of the torture. What I have is the scars on my feet, my foot from being reconstructed twice. What I have is words. Every day I say, please remove my character traits that are not useful. I am enough. I have enough. It is enough. And I live in an abundant universe. I read these 2 little notepads every day when I write my food down, when I call my sponsor. And today I told my sponsee that I would be on this meeting, that I would talk to her later. Thank you so much. I'm going to end with that. And thank you for the privilege and the opportunity for me to be with you all across miles. And I am just really did this meeting. What I got out of it was forgiveness of myself, to forgive myself. And that is something that it just happens when it happens. And thank you for giving me that opportunity to forgive myself.